Hey, it's another episode of Fixing Your Agile Coaching. I am professional Scrum trainer Ryan Ripley. Joining me today is certified Scrum trainer and Agile coach extraordinaire, Joe Perold. Joe, how are you today?
How's it, Ryan? I'm very good, thank you. It's really, really great to be here with you.
Yeah, I miss you guys. I think a lot of people that have checked out our YouTube channel, they've probably seen where I did a keynote in South Africa with Faye Thompson, and it was actually Joe and Barry and a number of other people who made that possible and actually were amazing hosts. They took us all through Joburg and amazing dinners and amazing, like that 5-course dinner thing we did was, I still look at those pictures sometimes. That was pretty wild. Just a phenomenal visit. And I miss these people terribly. I wish we could get back. Someday we will get back, or maybe
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
drag Joe and Barry to the US and have them come and hang out with us. But awesome people, and really loved meeting their community. And so it's great that, Joe, we can get you on the Agile for Humans network and to get you to talk about some Agile coaching, because this is a space that I think it's wildly misunderstood. And you've got some great insights here. And I know that one area that you've been really passionate about lately and that the world needs to get better at,
Yeah.
right? This is something that we all need to level up, including myself, is really Agile coaching in a remote world. Right. I
Yep.
mean, this has become the topic because I was looking at some data the other day. I think there's been like a 40% quit rate from jobs if they're required to go back to the office.
Mm.
Like, we're seeing a lot of people resign and change jobs, and they're basically saying, I want to work from home. I love waking up, seeing my kids. Like, for me, there's a little person, and I'm surprised she hasn't come in here yet. I have my 5-year-old daughter. She likes the hourly hug. She's like, Dad, it's been an
Oh.
hour. And so during training classes, everybody knows an hour is up because my daughter comes in. I love that. So I don't want
Mm.
to go back to an office. Do you?
No, that's really awesome, Ryan. That's awesome. I must say there are some things that I miss about being in a room full of people,
Yeah.
and I think I would like at some points in my life to have some kind of a mix. But
Yep.
am loving working in a remote space, and the ability at the moment. So I'm working with people literally all over the world. A team that I work with at the moment, we're in, I don't know, 6 or 7 different countries, and there's 9 or 10 people in the team.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's really, really awesome, and we span time zones from kind of the UAE all the way through to the east coast of the US. So
Nice.
yeah, yeah. So it's so exciting. Yeah.
So when it comes to, Agile coaching in a remote world, like, what are some of the challenges you're seeing? What are some of I mean, there's definitely, like I certainly, and hopefully we're aligned here, else I'm going to start a controversy right away. But
Mm.
I do not prescribe that it's 100% the experience of being together. Like,
Mm.
I don't agree with that. Like,
Yeah.
I think that through, and maybe, maybe we'll see where we're at with this. I think that through good facilitation and coaching in a remote space, you can get about 90% of that experience. I think you lose a little bit. Is that fair?
I, I do agree. So I do think that you lose a little bit, and I also think that you gain some other things.
So
So
tell me about that. So that's an
yeah.
aspect that I've not thought about. I love this. All right.
Mm.
This is why I love talking to people like Joe. She's so much smarter than I am. I want to hear this.
So yeah, so it's interesting. I was thinking about it the other day. I was working with a team um, who are awesome. They ship regularly. They work together really well. And I had noticed that I hadn't really spent a lot of time in doing working agreements for this team and things like that. A lot of the basics that you would normally do, which I
Right.
still think are really, really useful and really are awesome for teams anyway. But what I noticed was this team, like, they had less stickiness, and they were able to still really work well together and still achieve their goals in kind of an interesting way. And I was wondering about, how sometimes when you spend a lot of time with people all the time, then all of those little quirks that are a tiny little bit annoying get a lot annoying, over time. They're only a tiny little bit annoying in 5-minute doses, but in like 5-hour doses or 3-week doses or whatever. It's all those things that you used to whine about at the water cooler with each other. Oh, did you hear so and so? And what the next thing. So there's a lot of that's not happening because you're not spending enough time with your colleagues for them to get annoying. So on the one hand, you're missing a lot of connection, which is sad, and you have to really work that much harder to build that human connection, which is very important, and I still do that. But on the other hand, there's also this element of like, because I worked in an organization in my previous life, long before COVID, where each team had a team room, and they were working in a team room together all the time. And there were lots of awesomeness about having a team room. And then there was also like, there were those dudes that just like got on your nerves, for many, because they chewed loudly or they always brought their smelly food to work, or there was, whatever it was, there was some things, or they had these loud personal phone conversations in the office about whatever was going on. So you just don't have that. And that's kind of an interesting thing. So you need your working agreements, but your working agreements are a little bit different. So there are things that you lose without that, though. So not having those things also means that you don't get as close to people as you would in when you sit next to them, and you have to work past those things. So it's kind of like there's gains, but there's also losses.
No, I like that a lot. I hadn't thought about some of the gains, and I agree. I think that one of the reasons that Todd and I have gotten on so well, and that we're doing a lot of co-training together, but we're not getting too irritated, because I'm that way. If I'm around someone too long, I'm like, get away from me. I've had enough. The only person in my life that has never been, it's my wife and I have never. Well, maybe she's been irritated with me, but I've never felt like I want this person to go away. Like I've always, but anyone else, given enough time, it's like, but we haven't had that. And maybe it is because, he's in Pennsylvania, I'm in Indiana. For our international audiences, we're a few states apart. And it just, so our work is remote. And so we talk a bit, but then we're apart for a bit, and it just seems to work great. So I'd never consider that, though. That's a really cool aspect of that remote, that gain, right? And so that's really neat. With these remote teams, though, you did mention that there's some gains, some losses. What are some of the struggles that, as an Agile coach, you've really had to zero in and focus on and help people kind of level up? Or what is, maybe a different way, so you can pick which way to answer this, but what are some of the things that you're kind of laser focused on, trying to make sure this stays good, or this doesn't turn sideways, or you're like, where's your narrowed focus when it comes to this remote coaching and the way the teams are working?
Yeah. So the one thing that I've noticed from a remote perspective that's been super hard for me is getting that awesome level of visibility. You used to be able to get a level of visibility of work in a physical space by creating a board and putting sticky notes on that board. That is very, very hard to do in a remote space, because even though there's lots of cool tools out there to do all kinds of things, and even though organizations used to use those tools even when they weren't remote, that visual, the information radiator that was a physical board had so much stuff on it, right? Because often teams would have their kind of their last retro actions. They would have avatars of all the team members. They would have the list of who's not going to be there when. They would have the work, so you could see what work was in progress, who was busy with what. Sometimes there might even be a roadmap or a story map plastered on the wall where you could keep track of where you were in the context of everything, and all of those kinds of things. So I've been spending quite a lot of time trying to figure out how to create these information radiators in a way that makes sense for a team without necessarily adding another layer of transaction cost onto, because who likes extra admin, right? So, so it's like, how can we get some kind of visual radiator in a way that makes sense without necessarily having to do a hell of a lot of extra admin in those spaces. So that's one of the things that I've been quite focused on. And for one team, I created a board where we try to simulate a lot of that. So that was pretty cool. So we had leave stuff there and a backlog and a roadmap, and like I kind of simulated their sprint board, and we had our strategic goals linked there, where we were going in for the quarter, that kind of stuff. And then leave, who was going to be gone when, a parking lot for people just to put stuff up, if it came up. At the moment, we use it for our sprint reviews. So we do Scrum, so we use it for our sprint reviews. So we're looking at it every 2 weeks, which is awesome. And I wish that I could have a way for it to be more of a radiator, but I think I need to just put different information on it and experiment a little bit more with what might be valuable to people.
Yeah, a lot of the leaders that I get to talk to, it's interesting how they seem to feel the same way, where they miss the walkabout, where they would kind of walk from the team areas and they could see the team boards and they could just see progress, and they could, hey, that's interesting, can you tell me more? And there's like this connectedness, even from a leadership level, where, they don't have that full picture anymore. And I remember seeing an article, and if I can dig it up, I'll put it in show notes, from, I think it was McKinsey or Deloitte or one of the big box consultancies, where they said they're actually seeing signs where the more senior leaders are circumventing middle management and going straight to the teams because they miss the ability to kind of walk and glance. And that's creating kind of this kind of weird middle for the middle manager, because like, wait, why is the VP talking to the team? And as it turns out, there's nothing sinister there. It's they miss the ability to kind of see what's going on, and they miss kind of the information in the radiators. And I think that's kind of a neat point there. I know that for some of the teams we're working with, we've set up kind of mural boards or Miro, whichever. I know there's like I don't want to get in that. Like if you like mural, use mural. If you like Miro, use Miro. They're all great.
Yeah.
I even know people using like Google Slides, and they're happy with that. So whatever tool it's just the vehicle to deliver information. But we've tried to have like these murals set up where with the same, and I think your principle is super important, without additional overhead, right? We're not trying to add to the work. We're trying to just have kind of like this organic creation of information to radiate. And that's a really hard edge to balance. Like, have you found any really good techniques that have helped?
So like for me, it's a bit of a mix between what I've noticed, and it was also like this in a physical world as well, is that the information radiator was only half of what you needed to do. The second half of it was the feedback loop. So that's the other thing, is that once you have a radiator, you also need a feedback loop, because if you don't have a feedback loop, then often that radiator just dies quite fast. And it was like that in a physical space as well. So because if you didn't have the feedback loop, very often that radiator wouldn't get updated, and you wouldn't see there wouldn't be new information, and it stops being useful. So I think that the thing that for me that's also been important is to try and balance the radiation with the feedback loops, so that you're constantly updating that information and making sure that that's there. So that's one of the things I've been doing quite a lot of.
Speaking of the feedback loop, and it's interesting, I don't think there's a lot of information out there about the feedback loop being a necessary component of a radiator. And so I think that's a really excellent gem, because I typically don't think of it in terms like that. And I haven't seen that's really important. I hope people pull that out. Something else kind of tangential to this that kind of popped in my head, but I'm seeing a trend. I'm curious if you're seeing it too. Kind of in the absence of good information radiators, in the absence of, the ability to walk and talk and look at things, are you seeing an explosion in the number of meetings that are getting scheduled. Is that a thing?
Yep. It's a huge thing, and I think it's a big pattern I'm seeing in a lot of spaces. A lot of organizations are trying to figure out how to do what to do about it and how to do things a little bit differently, because that's the thing is like there's this balance between getting more kind of connection and information and then having like too many meetings, and it's like, oh, we need to be more aligned, or we need to be more on the same page, but like, oh, there's too many meetings. And so so I think that's a huge struggle, is to try and figure out what can we stop doing from that perspective, and what makes sense to do asynchronously versus where do we need to have these feedback loops that require some kind of getting together of the humans, and like having, a scheduled whatever video call or whatever it is, and what makes sense. And I think like often, or what I have a hypothesis, let's rather go there. I have this hypothesis that I think that in the beginning, having a regular cadence and a feedback loop and a something where people actually physically get together is quite important to kick things off. It was like that when we were in physical environments as well. If you started something new, the regular cadence in people's diaries and the regular cadence of doing the same thing at the same time for the same reason was helpful to like get into a habit. It's kind of like going to the gym, or creating a new habit for yourself.
Right.
All of those kind of scientific things like play into that, I think. And so I think in the beginning that's super necessary, but what we don't do is we don't reevaluate after a certain amount. We don't like set ourselves these trigger points or these spaces or like these reevaluations to say, okay, cool. So now that this is in our blood or whatever, what do we need? What's just enough that we make sure that we're getting the value out of this without necessarily having the overhead? So what can we change? Like if we had to put on our lean waste hat, for example, like, and look at it from that perspective, what could we do that still allowed us to get the value, but maybe we could get rid of some parts of this. We could make it faster or shorter, or we could do more prep beforehand, or we could, whatever it was. So I think that there's also this like this need to reevaluate things. But sometimes the reason we don't reevaluate things is because we don't have time, because we're in too many meetings, because we're trying to like do all these things. So it's hard to think about like how do we balance these things, and what can we just stop for a short time. So a couple of the coaches that I work with are running an experiment where they just stopped all meetings for a week. They just canceled everything. And then they did a retrospective to see, okay, well, which ones, what happened and what did they miss, and what was good and what do they need. And it was kind of interesting, some interesting learning.
Now, that sounds amazing. Like that introspection, just so necessary right now, right? We got to figure out what's important, narrow the focus. I love that. With the explosion of meetings, right? Are you noticing that, at least it's something that I've seen, and I'm curious if this is happening. Like I always get nervous, like, am I just creating these weird situations, or is it actually a trend? Right. And I don't know if other coaches get paranoid like that too, but it's like, wow, am I causing this, or is this something that's kind of natural? It's probably a mix of both. Right. But what I've seen is that as we continue to misunderstand the purpose behind the Scrum events, the more this explosion of communication and also happens. And I'll give an example for the listeners out there. Joe, I know you know this very well as a CST. Like the sprint review is one that just drives me nuts, because we know it's supposed to be so much more than a demo, but it's usually treated as, well, we're just going to demo our stuff. We're all going to applaud and call it a day. And what we miss is talk about budgets and markets and feedback from users and the opportunity for executives to ask questions. And then 30 meetings spawn off because we didn't cover the right things in the event. Right. And so I wonder too, if part of this agile coaching in a remote world is also getting back to the basics and saying, look, let's rein in these meetings, follow these events as they were, intended, because the Scrum events are supposed to reduce the number of meetings in your org, not increase them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a big component of it too.
I definitely think so, Ryan. I think that a lot of the time, there is a lack of effectiveness in some of the ways that we do things. We're busy, or we're in a hurry, or the organization has just always done it like that, or whatever the case may be. And so there is this element of going back to basics and saying, okay, and reminding ourselves, what is the purpose? And I think it's also a little bit about, like, how do we need to change the way we facilitate in a remote space as well, right? Because that also changes. So it's also Scrum Masters and coaches, upping their skills and thinking about what actually needs to be different in the way that I'm going to do this, so that we can still get these awesome outcomes that we want and these focused outcomes that we need. And then, how can we use these events to then get rid of some of the other stuff that we're doing that's wasting our time? Because I think that there's both of those things can work together. There's the elements of, like, what about the way we facilitate needs to change a little bit so that, we can achieve these outcomes. And then also, like, a real honing in of, like, what actually are we trying to achieve, and how can let's analyze all the meetings we've got and understand which of these things are actually taking place because we're not doing this effectively, or we're not doing that effectively, or we're not doing that effectively. And so now we've got these extra things.
Yeah, Joe, I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting that you bring up leveling up. I think I'm going to transition into one of the things that you're offering now. The remotecoaches.com. If you want to level up your remote facility, and hopefully our viewers and listeners realize we don't promote a lot of stuff on here. Well, I mean, Todd and I promote our book, but there's not a lot of advertising or promotion of other Agile stuff, but this one's important. We truly believe in it. We know that if you all reach out to the remote coaches and you work with Joe and the others that are working on these courses, you are going to level up. It's really good stuff. And in this world, this environment, learning how to narrow that focus, learning how to facilitate in effective ways, I think that's going to be the game changer going forward, because I personally do not believe we're going back to 100% in the office. I don't think I think we're going to land in this hybrid space where, as Agile coaches, you've got to be effective in person, you've got to be effective remote, and you got to figure out how to bridge the gap when we're kind of in that in-between space. And I think these courses are really effective at helping you do that. So it's great work y'all are doing, Joe. And if you want to say a little bit about it, and then we'll close it out.
Thanks so much, Ryan. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited about it. It's very much we take a principles-based approach. So what we're really focusing on is principles that then you can work out what are the practices that work well for you in your context, because we find that most contexts are different, tools are different, what you need is different. So we really look at it from a principles perspective, and then we show some practical methods, and we also create a lot of space for people to actually practice what they're learning. So we will teach something, we'll show the principle, we'll show some practical methods that we might use, and then we create space for you to actually practice with a small group of people so that it's nice and safe and easy, and you're learning as you go. So that's really, like, our main goal is to help people just up their skills in that regard.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing that, Joe, and thanks for sharing your awesome knowledge on fixing your Agile coaching. It's been a pure pleasure to be able to chat with you, to see you again. I hope we do a lot more of these in the future. And just thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Ryan. It was so much fun and so awesome to see you.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you again.
As do I. I can't wait till we do this again. And for all of you out there, hopefully we'll get Joe back. If you leave a lot of good questions, maybe we can talk her into doing some follow-up. So leave your questions in the comment section below. Let us know what you think of these episodes. Like and subscribe so the next time that we have Joe on, you get a notification. And check out the socials. There's some videos that should be popping up that the YouTube algorithm thinks you'll find valuable. We do too. So check those out as well. There's a lot of other shows, fixing your Agile metrics, fixing your Kanban, fixing your Scrum, your daily Scrum, lots of shows out there. Check them out. Leave some comments. Let us know how you're doing with the content and what we're producing. Let us know how we can help. And until next time, get out there, learn a new skill, level up with Joe, check out a scrum.org class, whatever it is. Let's keep getting better, and we'll catch you next time.